Hey YouTube friends and friends on my Creative Friends group, welcome. I thought I'd do a lovely little demonstration today on a little pattern that's free to everybody, and it's this little pattern here. It's a little handy caddy. Actually, he's got a name. He's called Charlie, but for YouTube we're just calling it a handy caddy. And it's great because it's a good size, so it's very easily transportable with all your bits and pieces in. You can put your threads in there, your notions, fill it with chocolates, put your makeup in there. You can have it in the kitchen and have some, I don't know, pastry cutters in there. There's no end to what you can do with a handy caddy. The great thing about this one is that it could be reversible, so you can take it and you can push it. So the lining is now on the outside with your carry handles, because the carry handles have the same fabric. We have the outer fabric which matches the outer fabric of the caddy, and then we have like a binding on top which matches the lining, so it all matches beautifully. And then you've got the pockets inside, so you can have it either way. You've just got to remember to have a neat turning gap. So let's pop it back to how it should be, perhaps. And that's called the handy caddy. So I'm going to show you in this video how to make it, and it's actually really easy. It's really easy. So let's pop that back. I've got 3 now. This is my 4th, so I think I'm going to have lots of Christmas presents to give away later in the year. Right, so the main thing is that you start off with a square. So let me just take you overhead and you'll be able to see this. So we're using some gorgeous Japanese fabrics, and this is actually for the lining. So, but don't be alarmed, because we're not going to waste any of it, and you're going to see it very clearly from the outside. It won't be lost. So this is what you need. You need just a square. Now this happens to be 16.5 inches square, but it could be anything that's divisible by 3. So what you need to do is to make sure that you're going to fold this, and you're going to fold it into thirds. So you need a little bit of practice. So that's 1 fold, and then scoop it under, and that's 2 folds. And then what you need to do is to actually find your second lot of folds. So you're making it almost like a 9-patch square. So you've got 9 patches across the square, and that helps you cut the shape out that you need. So let me just show you that again. So any size square is fine to do this with. If you want to use your rotary cutter and your rulers and measure exactly, then you need that to be exactly divisible by 3 at a decent measurement. This happens to be 5.5 inches, 5.5 inches, 5.5 inches square, and obviously the others are the same. But also this could be a random square. It could be, I don't know, 14 3/4. Whatever it is, you want to be aware that if you're going to use your rotary cutter and a ruler, it needs to be purposely divisible by 3. But if not, the easiest thing to do is to fold it into thirds. So there's your first fold, there's your second fold, and then you just need to flip these, and that way you've got your folds. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is to cut the squares out. So you need to find where your creases are. Now it's not going to be easy for you to see this, but trust me, that's where my squares are. And like I say, you can use a ruler and rotary cutter if you want to, but this is all about making something that's really easy and something really practical, something quite fun, and you can fill with goodies, whatever those goodies might be. So I'm using my scissors. Sometimes I do like to use scissors. They're quite mindful, aren't they? Ideally you're not going to use directional fabric. This is kind of directional because we've got the diagonals, you can see, going across the fabric, but none of that will be lost. It'll be fine. And I just think it's so pretty. Japanese fabrics are, aren't they? They're very readily available. Just Google Japanese fabrics. I mean, any gorgeous fabrics is a hit for me. Okay, so we've got our 5 corners cut out. Now we're not going to waste these. These are going to be the pockets on the outside of the caddy. And if you want to, when you cut the 4 corners of your lining, sorry, the outer, I always think the pretty is the outer, but when you cut the corners of your outer fabric, those 2 could be pockets on your lining if you wish. I mean, that's a lot of pockets. That's 8 pockets, but you know what, you'll always use those for patchwork projects. So we'll need these in a moment because we're going to make the pockets to go on the outer fabric. So I'm just switching my iron on because all we need to do now is, well, actually I can show you that on the outer piece, this is my outer fabric, and I've already stabilised it with H640. So that's a lightweight fusible wadding. It's really quite nice, and you can sew easily through it. If I was using something like Bosal in our form, I would definitely trim away 1/4 inch all the way around just to help with the bulk. So this one I've already cut my corners out, as I just showed you before. You can see that's where I've cut them out. I did exactly the same, folding it in to those thirds, and then I cut my corners out. So that's ready now for the pockets to go on. Now with the pockets, all you're going to do, and I'll tell you, we've got straps as well, and I'll tell you the measurements of the straps when we get to them. We're just going to fold up the bottom edge by about 1/4 inch. And then you just bring my mat over. And then on the top, we're going to fold it over once and over again. It's about 1/4 inch. I think it's probably more like 3/8. But so it's nice and neat. There we go. So your top looks like that, and your bottom is actually just a raw edge. And that will sit on your outer, just like this when we've stitched it, okay? So if we do that with all 4 pieces, so the bottom edge about 1/4 inch, and the top edge fold once, fold twice, give it a little press. We'll do the same with all of them. Don't have to, you can just put this under the machine and stitch. I'm not measuring, so I think that's the joy of this project, is that you don't really have to measure. The only thing I would say it needs to be fairly accurate are when you stitch the pockets on and they actually line up with each other. And you'll see as we go along what I mean by that. Okay, bottom edge, top edge. And we'll run those under the machine to make them super neat. Okay. So, as I said, each one of these gets placed on the front. Now this will be the top, so you need to make sure that this is the one where you're going to top stitch, and then we're going to top stitch them all, and then we'll pin them on and we're going to baste them in place so they're nice and secure. So let's bring the machine in and change the angle so it's easy for you to see. So let's do that. There we go. Try and get my gadgets and gizmos out of the way. And so we're only stitching, this is the raw edge at the bottom, so we're only stitching this top edge. So pop it under. I've got my stitch length on 3. And believe it or not, I'm using matching pink thread. Very rare. So we'll just chain piece these. Another tool that you could have handy is your stiletto. So instead of getting your fingers too near your machining, you can use your stiletto. Keeps you nice and safe. And then the last one. So don't forget, it's the folded over edge, not the raw edge. Okay. So we'll just cut those. Pretty fabric, isn't it? Okay. So we'll go to the overhead and I'll show you what we need to do with these. Okay. So let's get our pins. Got my ever faithful Suki here. You can't quite see it, it's there. I've had it years. And yeah, really comes in handy. So this folded bottom edge needs to line up with that point, or the internal corner. And just pop a pin in. Now you might find your pockets are a little bit different in size. Don't worry about that. It's only because we cut this manually. We didn't use a ruler or a rotary cutter, and it's all done using the fold. So if you need to trim, trim. It's not going to make your project any less beautiful. So line your fold with the internal corner there. And what we need to do is to make sure that our pockets here line up. So we'll pin them on and then we'll have a look. So just pin them in place, making them as nice and secure. So again, that folded edge just there. So you can see now that the outer fabric, although it's beautiful, but we're covering most of it up. This is the base, so you won't really see that either. So let's turn it again, pop our pocket on. Now obviously you can measure all of this. I'm just wanting this to be a nice easy project that I don't have to fuss about. And if there is a little bit over, trim it. There we go. Good. Okay. So the other thing, as I said, you need to just try and make sure that the tops of the pockets match. So what you can do is fold these, fold the top edges, and make sure that they match. I'm happy with that, but you need to check every one. And I suppose the main thing is that when we stitch these sides up, you can adjust if you need to. So I'm pretty happy with all of those. So the next stage is to actually stitch and baste all these pockets in place. We can assume that that one's okay. So now that they're all pinned, they're all safely secure. So what we're going to do is take it to the machine and we're going to baste down this edge here, stitch the pocket down and baste up the side here. You can change the stitch lengths if you want to as you're basting, but it's just, I think, a bit of a waste of your time to do that. So you're stitching a quarter, not a quarter inch, you're stitching 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge. And we're going to do all four. So you start a little way away and then you're just coming down to the bottom. There we go. So then you're going across the bottom of your pocket. Do not stitch your pins. And then you're coming up the other side. Just make sure everything is flat. So that's our first pocket done, so let's carry on. So keep taking those pins out. So the bottom of the pocket, you're about 1/16 of an inch, thereabouts. Now because of the seams in this little caddy, you're going to see about 1/4 inch of your outer fabric at the bottom of your caddy, and you'll see that when we're finished. So you're just carrying all the way around. So if you take the pin out, try not to move your pocket. It might be easy to do that. And this is where you could use your really lovely best fabric to make a real impact. So just turn it, make sure that's lying nice and flat. You want to try and get the distance between the top edge and the top of your pocket to be the same, so it doesn't look like you've got a slanty pocket. So last one, take those pins out, and of course if you've ironed everything and pinned everything, it's super easy and super quick. Again, make sure it's all nice and flat. Okay, so that is all our pockets attached, and they're all looking really lovely. So now we need to create the straps. Now the straps are 3 inches wide by 12 inches long, and you need a binding strip that goes over the top, and I'll show you the finished sample in a sec. You need a binding strip which is 1 inch wide by 12 inches long, and you're folding the long edges to the middle just like you would with binding. When we've stitched this together, then we're going to attach our binding over the top. You get the top stitching on the back there, and you get your binding on the top. And if you want to, the binding could go over that centre seam. In this instance I decided not to, which is fine. So to create your strap, you're putting your long sides together, do a little back stitch so it's secure, and you're stitching all the way down 1/4 inch. When you come down to the bottom, you're going all the way down, right down to the raw edge. You're going to do a back stitch. Just caught my fabric a little bit. You're going to come back a bit, as you can see there. I'm going to increase my stitch length to about 4.5, 4.4, that type of thing, and then we're just going to go straight across. And those stitches will come out eventually. Okay, so let's just push that to one side and bring you on the overhead so you can see what I'm doing. So there's our piece, and all we're going to do now is turn it right side through. So I have got a gadget, which now I can't see, and you can just turn it through using your gadget. It is right in front of me. So I was struggling with this last night because I couldn't remember how to use it. So you've got a pointy end, sort of, and you've got a flat end. It's like a tube that you can actually, that fits inside that. And these are okay, but you might want to just use an ordinary turning tube, but I thought I'd show you. So with the flat end, that goes inside your tube, and you pull it through, and then you find a little place. I wouldn't do it on the stitching because you might rip your stitching, so you can see where I've got it, and you're just catching that, and then all you're going to do is pull that through, and you're pulling it so it goes on the other side of this gadget. Somebody said the other day, if you have a gadget and you use it, it becomes a tool, and a tool is always essential, isn't it? So it's no longer a gadget, it's an essential tool. There we go. So there we go. You can pull it all the way down if you want to, but once you got to that stage, you might as well release it and then just pull it through. And then it's this other end, you need to unpick those stitches. So just find the end where the stitches are. It's here somewhere. And undo those stitches, because I'm using pink thread, it's not so easy to see. And then just get your raw edges as you normally would, and just get rid of those little ends there. There we go. Great. So all we need to do now is press it. So there's our tube finished, but you just want to make sure that you're pressing that seam the same way all the way down. So if it goes over to the left or the right, then try and make sure that that continues all the way down. And you can feel it. So try and get that in the centre. And like I say, your binding strip can go across this seam. I'll show you in a sec. Just opening that up. Give that a nice little press. There. And this little piece that we've made, so that's the 1 inch by 12, can either sit directly on top like that, or if you want to, you can cover your seam by putting it on that way. And so therefore your seam is covered and your back is just nice and neat, but you will have 2 stitching lines there. But as I've done it the other way round on the sample, then I'll stick with that. So now what you can do is you can pin that, or use some quilting clips. Let me get some. You can use some quilting clips just to hold that in place, or you could use some quilter's tape, or it's whatever you feel comfortable with, really. There's no rights or wrongs. There we go. And no doubt I'll take those off before I stitch anyway, or just as I'm starting to stitch. So let's see, let's put you back on the side camera, nice angle to see things, and we'll just stitch down. To take those clips off. I like to be able to have it loose and pull it so it's straight and flat. My machine loves to talk to me. It's oh, I've still got it on 4.2. Let's turn it down. I thought it was a bit fast. So you need it on about 3. My machine chirps if I've done something wrong. If I've tried to start and my foot pedal up or down, or yeah, it just chirps. So you might hear that from time to time. I have no patience, and I'm used to my industrial machine, which doesn't chirp at me, just does as it's told. But this machine is lovely, so I'm really happy with it. It's the QVP, it's the DX2000 QVP. It's really the DX7 in disguise. So there we are, so that's our other strap done. So now what we can do is that we can have a look, see how we attach them to our caddy. So all you're going to do is find your 2 sides. Now you want to put right sides together. So this is your right side. This is obviously your right side. So we're just going to attach those. Careful you don't twist them. Now I'm putting them about 1 inch away, roughly, from the side edges there. I think 1 inch is about right. Let's get 2 more clips. And obviously you can measure this if you wish. So let's put this other clip in. Okay, so we've got our handles attached. Don't forget they're right sides down, so the pretty little binding piece is facing this. And all we're going to do now is baste all the way across both sides to attach those straps, those handles. And that way they become really secure. Okay, let's get those done. So start a little way away. Now you might find that your presser foot here wants to push your strap, so keep your stiletto handy, and as you take your clip away, just hold the strap in place with your stiletto and make sure that you're stitching that nice and straight. So under the machine, I'll get my hand out of the way, there we go, and just hold the strap in place, make sure it stays straight, that's the main thing. Take the clip away again, hold it with your stiletto, or you could use the pointed part of your scissors just to hold it in place. So that's your straps basted on, just about see that, lots of threads. Okay, so now what we can do is just pop you on the overhead so we can see what we're doing. So our straps are now in place. All we need to do now is to actually stitch the sides together. So we've got the lining, and the lining is exactly the same. We're just stitching these sides together. So when I say that, let's get the lining first, because that's not so bulky. So you're literally doing right sides together and you're taking it up to the neighbouring side. Just try and make sure that your top edges sit nicely. So open it up, and it's these two that are going together. So put your finger in there and get that point in the right position, and your top edges lined up. And then when we look again, it's these two sides that are going together. So you're literally just working your way around a cube. That's all you're doing. Nice and easy. Okay, and the last one like that. Now then, we mustn't forget we need a turning gap. So there's several ways you can do this. Sometimes we'll use a double pin. I'll take that clip out, so I can put a pin there and a pin there, and then on the other end, so this is the maximum where I can stitch, so I could stop it around about there. So a double pin, and that will always remind you that that is your turning gap, and I would suggest that's the first thing you do. So let's take it to the machine again. Okay, so 1/4 inch seam allowance, and don't forget to do a back stitch. And we're just going to go up to the first set of double pins. We'll take them out because that really just was a reminder, and then a back stitch, and then we're coming right down the bottom here, foot down, couple of stitches, then a back stitch, down to the bottom, and cutting threads. So that's probably the most difficult thing you'll do on this particular section, is just remembering. Now if you don't remember, it doesn't matter, you can just open up a gap for when you start to turn through. So nothing is lost. I think people get overexcited if particularly a demonstrator forgets to put a turning gap in. You can just do it later. So all the way down, and back, couple of threads, same again. So you're just doing this twice really, with the lining and with the outer. You're coming just beyond the point, those inner points that we did. And you want to do it as neatly as you can, because we can make this reversible, as you saw right at the beginning. So let's just secure that. And cut the threads. There we go. So that is our, oops, that is our lining done. So we've made a cube. You can just push those points out, and we need this to be right side out because we're going to put our outer over the top of this, because it's got the wadding. It's heavier and it's better to have it on the outside. Okay, another top tip, where we've got the turning gap, which is just here, yeah, I'm just going to iron those seams back like that. So I'm going to open them up and then I'm going to press, because when it comes to stitching the turning gap closed, let's do it so you can see, it's actually much easier if we've opened that seam up. So you can see my seam, so we're going to open it so it's flat, and then we just bring my line over. Okay, so we can open it. Now you might not be able to see this, but I'm opening the seam, the other end, if I can get my finger in there. There we are. Just give that a little finger press there, so that's now open. And if I pull that, that's going to open both those seams together. Do you see? And I'll just put my iron on that, and it's much easier to stitch your turning gap closed when it looks like that, when it's open and you've pressed the seam. Okay, right, so we're going to repeat that side stitching with our outer caddy, but what we're going to do, make sure, is that our pockets line up. So the tops of our pockets, we just do it as best we can, so that when we stitch, those pocket tops sit nicely together. And then I'll put a little clip in there just to hold it like that. Okay, so we'll do the other. Tuck your pockets in. Got lots of threads everywhere. So again, line those pocket tops up, and then do your best with lining the top up. I mean, you've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so if they're not absolutely 100%, please don't worry about it. I think I'd rather see a neat pocket top. So I'm lining up my seams there, you can see, and just clip that, and then the last one, just snip all these threads. So line that up and pop a clip in. So all we're going to do now is stitch down those 4 sides to secure our little caddy. Make it lovely and neat. So let's, oh, I'll keep you there on the side camera. Just going to change you over. Okay, so I'm just going to trust the process now. I'm not going to check again. Do a little back stitch because we want that top seam to be secure. Take your clip out. It's not easy to take clips out on this machine. On my other machines I can just slide them off. So all the way down. When you get near to the bottom where the point is, where that internal point is, I want you to put something sharp inside. Well, something like a turning tool or a pair of scissors, and I just want you to make sure that that fabric inside is lying flat. It should do. If your wadding and your lining have adhered properly, it should do, but just in case, just give it a little help there. Okay, that's one. So pop it under the machine. Okay, so this time, started at the top, I'm going to put my pokey tool in there, and I'm just, you can see, just pulling that, so A, it lines up my seams nicely, but also it makes sure that that fabric is lying nicely inside. And again. So, get my poker tool ready, stiletto. Just watch for your straps, they should be okay. And also don't forget, that's it, don't forget you're going on the left hand side of the pocket stitching. So can't quite see it on that one, but your pocket stitching is the top row of stitching and your seam is the next row in, so you're going to the left of your pocket stitching. If your pocket stitching is visible when you finish, just unpick it. Just get your unpick tool and take those stitches out. So just put my stiletto in that corner there and pull it so it's nice and taut. There we go. Good. So there is our caddy now stitched. And I'm going to keep it like that. So you've got a perfect cube with the handles and the pockets inside. So now we're going to put right sides together with our lining. And all you're going to do is find a seam. It doesn't matter which seam goes where, as long as you're lining up the seams. And if you want to, nest the seams. And I'll just keep you there on the side camera, so a better view. So just clip where you've got that open seam. It doesn't matter, you don't want to be pushing the seams to one side, so it's up to you. It's not a huge amount of bulk. So just line up the seam, pop a clip in, line up the seam and pop a clip in. There we go. And that's the lining now clipped in place. So we're going to stitch all the way around and then we can turn it through the turning gap. So on my machine, I'm very lucky with this machine, I've got, oops, I've got a table that I can take away. There we go. Let's put it over there. And so that sits neatly on my free arm there, which is great. Okay, so we're just going to stitch all the way around now. 1/4 inch. You may not be able to see very much now. It's a bit bulky. So what I suggest you do before you turn it through is just check this top seam and make sure that you have caught both sides, and just watch those straps haven't twisted. Sometimes they want to go off at an angle. Oh, it's chirping at me again. It's not ready to stitch, you see, that's what it is, it's telling me off. Okay, so that is the top now stitched. So, excuse me, let's have a little look on the overhead. So we just need to find our turning gap, which is just here, where it's just caught my seam there, but that's okay. So it's where we ironed that opening flat. So all we want to do, pull our lining out, get hold of something on the base and pull that through. You might find it a little bit tricky because it's only a small turning gap and it's quite a stiff caddy now because of all the layers of the pockets and the straps. So take your time. If the stitches rip, you can still stitch them up nice and neatly. So just pull it through as best you can. So this is where I would definitely say to you, give this an iron. There we go. It's there. It's just the last little bit. And never be worried because you've done all that back stitching, so it should be absolutely fine. You just don't want to rip it if you can help it. There we go. There, lovely. So there's our caddy, looking creased. So there's our turning gap there. So all we need to do now is to pinch those fold pieces together and just stitch along there just to secure that and to make it nice and neat. And hopefully you can get those edges to meet okay. So let's bring the machine in and we'll just run it under the machine. We'll keep the table off for the moment. Now because this is reversible, you want to try and make this as neat as you can. See how you go. So I'm just bringing the two folded edges together. I'll show you when I've done. It's just, oh, it's gone inside now. Just neaten my thread there. So make sure those folded edges stay folded. And just stitch them together. There we go. So a little back stitch again. And just trim that thread there. So there you are. That's a lovely, nice, neat closure. And because it's reversible, that's really important to get that as neat as you can. You don't have to reverse it. Okay, the next stage is, let's just put the machine away. I'll keep you there. So you're popping that lining back inside where it belongs. And we're going to top stitch all the way around that top edge. Poke those corners out. So you can see now what I'm saying about it's 1/4 inch longer on the base. Now you get that 1/4 inch just because of the way it's stitched together. And not too bad. Pockets are all nicely lined up, which is probably the main thing. So this top edge here, that needs to go inside, and you need to top stitch all the way round. Now ideally you're going to iron this so you've got a lovely, lovely crispy edge to iron, so it's lovely and neat, but we'll just go for it as it is, and then we'll press it afterwards. So we'll bring this machine back in again. When you come to go past the straps, you need to make sure that your straps are on the right of your needle and your bag is on the left. So, excuse me for licking my fingers. Ideally you're going to press this edge, but time is always against us. So just keep everything as neat as you can. When it comes to the strap goes to the right and the caddy goes to the left of the needle. And that actually secures the strap really well. and it stops the strap from flopping over. It actually keeps it, excuse me, upright. So it's quite handy. Okay, let's just get those seams out as best as I can. So all the way across the top. If that catches there, just give it a little nudge, not a tug. You're just guiding it. Never ever pull your fabric from the other side, okay? It's naughty. Okay. So keep those straps in the right position. If you've nested the seams, then that should be easier for you to go over. She says, and it's getting stuck again, but just give it a little nudge. If you've got a seam jumper, then use that. Okay. It's so pretty, really is pretty. So over that last little bit. That's lovely. So I haven't done any back stitching because we're top stitching and we don't want that the back stitching to show because it can be quite ugly. So just put your hands in there. Make sure that lining is sitting nicely, and push your corners out. Trim all your threads that you can see, and there we have our finished caddy, which looks amazing, doesn't it? Really lovely. So you don't see much of that outer fabric at all. It's more on the base. Okay, so that is our finished caddy. Looks great, doesn't it? I love the colour. Such a pretty colour. And that lovely Japanese fabric. So although we put that fabulous fabric as the lining, you can see how much of it we see. Now this needs a really good press. So if we look at the one previously made, that's had a nice press, and it sits really beautifully. And you can see how by stitching the straps as we did, they stand up better, they stand up. If we hadn't top stitched, they would flop. Okay, so it's worth the effort of stitching those. Right, so this is going off for a really good press. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. Don't forget to check me out on my website, lizzycurtis.com. If you've got any queries at all, just put a little comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.